Hello, a very good morning to all of you. Today we are going to discuss the bar graph as the academic task one here. Let's have an overview regarding the four classical charts. In academic task one, we do have four very common types of questions, and they are the line graphs, and number two, it's bar graphs. Number three, it's pie charts. Number four, it is table. So the chart what we have here is a bar chart, and it is one of the common type of questions which are asked in the academic task one. The specification of these four types of questions, line graph, bar graph, pie chart, and table, is that all these figures contain mathematical calculations. We do have to do comparisons at one point of time. We have, whether it's a static chart or a movement chart, whether we do have a different time frame or the same time frame, we have to do comparison. For example, higher, lower, more, less, increasing, fluctuating, decreasing. So all these types of languages, see, doubled, halved, tripled. Say these types of languages are something related to statistical information. Whenever you go with a data, when we convert it into statistical information, we have these things. So we expect, when we look into the answer, we expect comparisons. So that's what we have in our question, give comparisons. So you need to summarize the information. We have a handful of information. So we have two figures here, two figures here, two here, two here, two here, two here, and two here. So 6 plus 7, 7 times 2, 14 figures here in this chart. So here we have a lot of figures. Here we have a lot of countries. So it's a big thing. So I need to identify the main points which we have to include in the bar graph. And then I have to present it in a logical way. I need to organize. So if from the highest point to lowest point, or the lowest point to highest point, exception, separate. So this is something what we called as grouping. First, we have to analyze the task, see whether it is a static chart or a movement chart. Then we have to see the trends there, whether it is increasing, general, decreasing, or higher or lower, more or less, whatever it is. You have to get an overall summary of the picture, and then I have to develop that picture to a small essay. And this should contain at least 2 paragraphs. That's something what we called as organizing. And we have to write at least 150 words. This is what we have to see here. Now let's move ahead with the bar chart. What we have here, we have 6 countries here, and these 6 countries, it's compared to the world average. The data of these countries, class size, both in primary school and lower secondary school. The class size of these countries, in South Korea, how many students were there in primary school? in 2006. In South Korea, how many students were there in lower secondary school in 2006? This is what the question is. And this is compared to Japan. This is compared to the UK, Denmark, Mexico, Iceland. And here we have a world average. So we have an answer here. Let's look at the answer. The given bar chart compares the average class size in primary schools and lower secondary schools in 6 nations with comparisons to the world's average. Okay, fine, good. So what is the picture? It's a bar graph. Yes, it is a bar graph. And what it shows, it compares the average class size in primary schools and lower secondary schools, where in 6 nations with comparisons to the world's average. When it happened, it is in 2006. Oh, this is a past tense. So we have to use simple past tense. So we know the tense here, which we have to use here. Now let's go over the overall picture. In general, the class size of lower secondary school was larger, except in the UK and Denmark. And this exception is much similar to the world average. So we have the overview. You can see the trend here. The lower secondary school students are more in South Korea, Japan, Mexico, Iceland. But in the UK and Denmark, it is the opposite. You have slightly more number of students in the primary school classes. And in the world average, you can see in the world average too, you can see slightly more students are there in the primary school rather than the lower secondary school. Now it's clear from the chart that the class size was larger in both South Korea and Denmark. No, it's not South Korea and Denmark, actually. South Korea and Japan. Okay. Of the two countries, higher number of students were there in South Korea, with 34 and 36 in lower secondary and primary schools respectively, while in Japan, this was 31 and 23. Yes. Mexico stood next in the case of, in case of size of the class. In case of, I have to reduce the word count, in case of the class size. However, the number of lower secondary students in a class in Mexico was 31, which was 10, it's not percentage, 10 higher than the number of children who were in a primary school class. Okay, so you can see the number of lower secondary students in a class in Mexico was 31, which was 10 higher than those who were there in a primary school class. The class size in the UK and Denmark showed a different pattern. So we have a different pattern. Unlike Mexico, South Korea, and Japan, we have more number of students, slightly higher students than in the primary schools. There were slightly higher schools, slightly higher number of students than the lower secondary students. The class in the UK and Denmark showed a different pattern when the number of primary students were slightly higher. So I have already said the secondary students there. So it's redundancy. So I know the comparison is between two of the school levels. So it's enough there. The student occupancy in classes of both countries ranged between 16 and 24, and the higher figures were for the UK. Okay. The least class size were there in Iceland, and this was an average of 15%. So this, before this last sentence, I have to enter the world average. So that's the problem here. So the world average stood at 26 and 24, I think so. 26 and 24 for primary and lower secondary school students. Lower secondary school students, because I have in the question I have a comparisons, but the world average is not given. The figure is not given. As far as the figure is not given, the data is incomplete. What you have said is that you are making a comparison between the world average and the data in 6 countries. So if your data is missing for the world average, then your answer is incomplete. The world average stood at 26 and 24 for primary and lower secondary students respectively. The least class size was there in Iceland, and this was an average of 15 with an average. With an average occupancy of 15%. Okay, that's it. So we have completed the explanation. So hope you must have understood this. Have a nice day. Thank you.